Recording in progress. you light up in the dark. I would travel miles just to stand in the middle of your heart. And I would say I'll fall away into the night. I will get lost in your city lights. Walking on the concrete, you can feel the people run. The city feels alive, it's like it's breathing, it's like it has lungs. And I can feel the way you move, the heartbeat. Your city lights always find me.
We, the people of the city of Greater Geelong, of many origins as we are, speak with one voice in acknowledging and paying respect to the Wadawurrung, the first people of this land, and recognise them as the original custodians of the lands and waters within their traditional boundaries. We also acknowledge and pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of the Cities of Design Subnetwork meeting hosted by Geelong, Australia, and thank you for joining us. I'm Tonya Mayrick, Senior Lecturer in Screen and Design at Deakin University, and it's an absolute pleasure to be your MC today, or is that tonight? What a wonderful gathering of people from our diverse global communities. We're also thrilled to have with us people from Geelong and across Australia, many of whom contribute to design and creativity in their own communities. The UNESCO Creative Cities Subnetwork plays an important role in bringing together people through a shared commitment to design and creativity. The network offers opportunity to celebrate and share design ideas and to innovate and learn from others. The Subnetwork meeting started strong yesterday. We explored the role that design plays in reimagining creative spaces and the importance of connecting to a city's cultural identity. For those of you who couldn't join us, I'll give you a short recap. We heard from Geelong on creating a clever and creative cultural district, about the development of Geelong's Arts and Cultural Precinct, which uses creativity as a cornerstone to help deliver on the city's long-term vision. It aims to be a shared cultural destination for arts and creativity, with connected cultural places creating new experiences for our community and attracting more people to the area. We heard from Kortrijk, the islands of southwest Flanders. Kortrijk spoke about urban leisure and the fascinating history and rediscovery of moated properties linking to their city's cultural heritage, and of the hope of the historic technique can be used to reorient social activities and to improve connections with nature. And finally, we heard from Kaunas in Lithuania about its Nemuno 7 engineered river barge, which will become a new cultural centre for arts and events. The project combines water and the built form, architecture, heritage and history, and explores sustainable reuse of a ship to become an attraction for local residents, artists and visitors. All of the projects in yesterday's session share a value of design and the rich connection with place and community, and they each grapple with uncertainty and they all reimagine a better tomorrow. You can watch last night's presentation on our website, geelongcityofdesign.com.au. But now our focus shifts to tonight's theme, Renew Sustainability. We'll start with a video from the School of Lost Arts, based here in Geelong, called The Journey of Extraordinary Encounters, about biophilic design. The work highlights our innate desire and need to be connected to the natural world. Cue the video, please. I'd now like to introduce tonight's moderator, Chuba Kojaturk, Professor of Integral Design, Director of the Mediated Intelligence in Design Research Lab and Co-Director of Design Mind with Deakin University. Welcome, Chuba.
Thank you, Tonya. Hello, everybody, and greetings from Geelong. My name is Tuba Kojaturk. I'm Professor of Integral Design at Deakin University School of Architecture and the Built Environment. I'm absolutely delighted to be the moderator of today's panel session, which is an exciting session with the theme Renew Sustainability. In today's panel, we will be exploring quite a number of fields, but we will specifically focus on design principles and how they can be applied in various ways to deliver sustainable outcomes for the community, for the environment and the economy. In his book, The Shape of Green, architect Lance Hosey explains how 90% of products' environmental impact is determined during the early stages of design. Another challenge that lies ahead of us today is to make sure that we not only design sustainably, but we also make sure that our designs will be recovered again and again at the end of their useful life, which is the founding principle of circular economy. And for that, we need new approaches to design, which includes thinking and planning what happens to a product at the end of its journey. We have 4 inspiring presentations lined up today from Geelong, Shanghai, Montreal, and Singapore. Each presentation will showcase the critical role design, designers, and architects can play in finding solutions across various industries, disciplines, and improve the way we design and consume products and buildings. If you would like to learn more about our expert panel or their projects, please visit our website, geelongcityofdesign.com.au. At the end of 4 presentations, we will have about 20 minutes for a group discussion. So we have an exciting hour ahead of us. So let me introduce and welcome our first speaker, Professor Christopher Huron, who is a Senior Research Fellow in Fiber Science and Technology at Deakin University. Chris will share with us how 3 interdisciplinary teams reimagined and redesigned solutions underpinned by circular economy principles. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Tuba. It's quite incredible to be able to be involved in this today. As a material scientist, it's great to be working with architects and designers to come up with new ideas. What I'm going to be talking to you today is about a circular approach we took to the pandemic. It's about designing out PPE waste because as the pandemic has gone along, the amount of waste in the medical area has been increasing quite significantly. With this increased medical waste, it puts an increased strain on the waste management systems, which then in turn means that an increased amount of this waste is going to landfill rather than being recovered. And for sustainability, we need to be recovering the value out of that. Now, this puts an increased impact on ecosystems, both because most of the materials that are used in the medical area are coming from oil and this type of material, but also as most of them go to landfill, we're not recovering the energy that was put into them to make them. And the whole idea of this project come out of the humble face mask. Most of us have worn one at some stage during the pandemic, and we know the variety that are out there. And a large number of these, especially in the medical field, are made from polypropylene. They're a disposable mask that's thrown away at the end of its use, and in most cases to landfill. And even worse, in some cases, these are escaping and getting out into the environment, into our waterways and into our soil, and they're not breaking down. So one of our research fellows actually come up with the thoughts, can we do something about it? And that's how the design challenge happened. The idea was to reimagine and redesign a face mask using design and system thinking focused on the circular economy. And to do this, we got quite a diverse team of people from across the university. Rather than just staying with material scientists, which is typically what happens in these fields, we got all sorts of groups, but predominantly architecture, as well as the material scientist group, together. And we set out a set of criteria that the challenge had to do. Now, one of the things was there must be the right user experience for people to use these masks. The masks needed to be feasible, and the design needed to be appropriate that people would want to wear them, along with having the infrastructure and supply chains, partnership and collaborators, business strategies, so that hopefully one of these masks would be taken to the next step where it would get out into the environment and be used by a company. So these are not skills that are just within the groups that we got together, because to do this challenge, we got together postgraduate students, either doing masters or PhD, some early career researchers and some mid-career researchers. Now, some of the design skills were there in the architecture group, and some of the material design skills were there in the materials group. But we got coaches on board to help the teams to develop business strategies, to look at consumer behaviour, to think creative design and social connection within their masks, and also things like entrepreneurial skills, so that they were looking at this more holistically. And so not only did we create 3 teams with 3 individual mask concepts, we also ended up with a development of those people that in the future, hopefully they would go out and propagate even better ideas. Now, I'm going to show you a slide from each of the teams. There's not enough time to show you every single slide, but it will give you an idea of some of the things that they were doing. Now, the first one is the team was called Spinnaker, and this was because of the novel design of their mask looked very similar to the Spinnaker that's used on a sailing boat. Now, with the circular concept for this particular mask, we were looking at using cellulose-based materials, because these can come from a resource such as bamboo or sustainable forests. They can be made into fibres that can be made into fabrics, which can be washed and reused many times by the user before they're collected and sorted. The good ones can be dissolved and made back into pulp to go back into fibres again. And the not so good ones can be industrially composted to go back into the soil that hopefully goes back into the sustainable forest. So this was a beautiful story, because the mask could also, if it got out into the environment, would break down naturally. Our second team, Smile Easy, this slide shows about how they thought about developing their partners, their collaborators, and their supply chain. And they were looking at minimising the amount of energy that went into making their face mask by keeping all of their contributors, all of their collaborators and partners close to themselves and in the one area. And so this meant that they could sustainably source the materials, such as waste from the food industry in the marine area, waste clothing, and wool from sheep. And it meant that they were able to make a mask that also could have all of its components recycled. Now, the last one that I'm going to talk to you about is the smart mask. Now, smart mask, here I'm showing the values of the team and their concepts and their values around designing the mask with health and well-being, connection to current country, and a shared culture. Now, this team worked very closely with a local Indigenous group to help with the artwork that they used in their mask, and also to understand the feel that people want to have when they're wearing a face mask. Being able to take along some of their artwork or their being with them was very important. Now, all of this just doesn't happen overnight. It requires a large number of people, and rather than label out names and everything like that, I thought I'd add the photos here. Everyone on this slide has either been a team member, has been part of the coaching group, has been on the organising committee, or was one of the panel members that oversaw the program. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you have a wonderful event.
Thank you, Chris. This was wonderful, and we hope to hear more about your presentation and the project during the discussion session.
Thank you, Juva.
Our next speaker is Dr. Jun Li. Jun is the Dean of Shanghai International College of Fashion and Innovation and Donghua University in China. Jun will share his project, which showcases a brilliant collaboration between industry and academia, which led to building an international platform offering green design solutions for sustainable fashion innovation. Welcome, Jun.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jun from Shanghai International College of Fashion and Innovation, Donghua University. It's my pleasure to share our project on behalf of Shanghai City of Design. Linking China's fashion industry with green design thinking and renew the current fashion into a circular and sustainable system is the mission of our college. Care for Future Green Design Research Network was established by Donghua University, Edinburgh College of Arts, Amsterdam Fashion Institute, LaSalle College of the Arts with fashion brands and designers based in Shanghai. And we proposed the 5R green design solutions. They are rethink, reduce, redesign, reuse, and recycle. It shows promise for reshaping the fashion and the step into dual carbon goal, which is China's national strategy aiming to have CO2 emissions peak before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. Please play the clip now. Five R Green Design Solution is a systematic innovation which covers the whole product life cycle. Rethink is in the early stage of green design, rethinking design factors from the perspective of fashion product end user, such as consumers' consciousness, needs, daily use, material, technique, and recycle. Fashion Revolution Scotland's school uniform recycling project and Envy's Dirty Laundry project demonstrate the possibility of reconstruction of a sustainable fashion system. Reduce in the green design process, reducing the negative impact of fashion production on the environment, such as reducing carbon emissions and energy consumption. Shanghai fashion brands Icicle and Clickly advocate awareness of protecting nature with non-dye fashion products. Digital design and manufacturing process such as whole knitting technology, 3D printing, all provide a possible solution to reduce the carbon footprint of fashion industry. Redesign is make a new design for traditional handcrafts in fashion products, inheriting handicrafts, increasing employment, and helping undeveloped areas. The brand of Fashion for Freedom, which initiated by Victoria Ho, has explored the cultural value of sustainable design and built a recyclable supply chain through close cooperation with Asia artisans. Shanghai fashion brand Seine River, inheriting Inner Mongolia felting craft as a zero-waste solution for knitwear. Reuse is make use of in-stock fashion products or any other out-of fashion products as material for upcycling. To provide another new life for fashion products, SCF Yongfu Elite Upcycling Project provides a green fashion solution for second-hand clothes and in-stock fashion products. Recycle is continuously using fashion materials through recycling so as to create a fashion system without waste and landfill. The core of the closed loop is recycled material. Shanghai fashion brand The Reclosing Bank had practiced the fashion application of recycled material such as RPET, and also our alumni Langer Chen has made a composite innovation of recycled material and functional textile and low-chain environment-friendly all-weather clothing collection. So that's 5 green design solution, and we all wish the best practice of Shanghai's fashion design could provide some idea for renewing the fashion for our earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Jun. This was really truly inspiring project, and I think it's a bit of a game changer for the fashion industry, isn't it? Our next speaker is Rami Bebawi, a principal architect and co-founder at Canva. Rami will speak about the project Space for Life and share with us how he and his team transformed a former Olympic velodrome into a unique place through retrofitting. A very inspiring project indeed. Welcome, Rami.
Thank you very much. Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Rami Bebawi, as you say. I'm principal co-founder with Tudor Radulescu at Canva, based in Montreal. So first I want to thank you, Tuba, Geelong, UNESCO Cities of Design, of course the City of Montreal, and the Bureau du Design de Montréal. I'm here to share with you some stories from our recent transformation of the Montreal Biodome Science Museum. As with all large-scale projects, this one started with an international competition in 2014 and was completed in 2020. And the intention in such a short presentation like today is to focus on topics that are relevant to this Subnetwork meeting. And as such, I wish to share with you 2 learned lessons that have contributed to our profession and our understanding of how design can impact positively notions of sustainability. The first lesson has to do with the idea of repurposing buildings that came about during international events, such as Olympics, World Expos, World Cups. When countries become the host of such venues, there's a need to build large-scale permanent installations that serve a precise purpose. And one of these buildings was a world-class velodrome that was designed by the French architect Roger Taillibert in Montreal. Years following the Olympics, the velodrome saw a drastic decline in its use. And with its open concrete vaults and its generous skylights, it became an opportunity for repurposing. And as the present director of the Biodome, Yves Paris, put it recently, what was once a temple for sports has become a temple for nature. And hence putting forward a never-changing social values and priorities. And so in 1992, the City of Montreal, within the Space for Life Museum complex, opened the Biodome. It's a museum dedicated to wildlife of the Americas, with 5 ecosystems within it, all under the roof: the tropical rainforest, there's a Gulf of St. Lawrence, a Laurentian maple forest, Labrador, of course, and subantarctic islands. But I think the idea of repurposing buildings created for international events is precious. It even leads us to question how we should build for such events, and to perhaps consider beforehand how such buildings could have a second life, or even be dismantled into smaller units to adapt perhaps to a more community city scale. We just recently returned from Dubai World Expo, where we were showcasing public art installations for the Canada Pavilion. And it was striking to see how certain pavilions were not only built with salvaged materials, but also took into account how the buildings would be dismantled after the 6-month exhibition to be repurposed for future uses. Hence, the Biodome found a home in the Velodrome. And after its opening in 1992, it was time to retransform this space. And so Space for Life, that gathers institutions such as the planetarium, insectarium, a botanical garden, and more recently the biosphere, set out to launch an international competition, architecture, in 2014, and that seek to bring closer humans with nature. And with as head of it, its visionary Jean-Mathieu Brunel, the director, the competition was awarded to Canva. And we set out on a new adventure that would change our lives, both professionally and personally. Here's a short footage of the Transform project, if you can please play the video.
Résumer le projet du biodôme à l'intérieur d'Espace pour la vie, comment vous dire? C'est vraiment une mise en valeur de cette splendeur de la nature dans un bâtiment architectural inédit.
Ce qui va surprendre les visiteurs, c'est sûrement dès l'entrée de voir l'espace ouvert, d'avoir été décloisonné, de mettre en évidence le bâtiment lui-même, le bâtiment qui fait partie du patrimoine de Montréal, puis de lui rendre honneur.
Et ce que l'on a fait, c'est qu'on vous propose un lieu blanc, tout blanc, avec cet écrin, cette peau qui retrouve et qui recouvre la nature, dans un silence qui habite et qui vous possède, qui met en valeur l'architecture fantastique de M. Taillibert.
Ce qui risque de passionner, disons, les visiteurs, c'est aussi la façon qu'on déambule à travers le biodôme. On partait d'un cycle qui était plus linéaire à l'époque et maintenant avec une espèce de plateforme centrale qui permet d'aller à travers différents écosystèmes à sa façon, un peu quand on se promène dans la nature. Et évidemment, le tout avec cette paroi, ce textile qui accompagne un peu les visiteurs dans cette appropriation du biodôme.
Ce que je souhaite, c'est que les gens soient profondément touchés par ce qu'ils vont voir et qu'en sortant, ils prennent tous les moyens qu'ils ont pour protéger cette nature.
The second lesson learned, since we were talking about repurposing building, is the leadership role that science institutions can play in raising public awareness, in educating and inspiring change to all for a more sustainable lifestyle. So yes, our mandate included technical components, programming, architecture, coordination, and so forth, but the most important aspect was how to touch visitors. And so we put forward a strategy with a very strong biophilic gesture that crossed the whole building, but we based it on the heart, the head, and the hand. And so the heart was how to bring people closer to living species, to create a certain emotional attachment and a sense of care. In some way, it seek to shy away from an anthropocentric values that place humans at the center of the world and to rather promote our belonging to a greater balance within a biodiversity. And so we had to sit with biologists, engineers, and technical teams and learn about the species and design their homes to allow visitors to be respectfully part of their worlds. That was the heart. The head had to do with education. Science museums have a responsibility to teach, to make visible the invisible, to reveal the complexity of maintaining life. And it's a sort of tribute to the richness of the natural buildings, the natural balance that surrounds us. And the hand, finally, rather than focusing on the footprint that we all leave behind, it focuses on promoting positive change to allow each of us to take part in this needed change of behavior. The Montreal Biodome is a journey. It required so many participants. Perhaps its transformation is a model of how the collaboration between humans can be a catalyst for transformation, an example of how together we contribute to individual and collective change towards a more sensitive and holistic perception of our surroundings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rami. It's a beautiful design, beautiful story, and beautifully told. I look forward to our discussion later on. Our final speaker is Hans Ten. Hans is an educator, an award-winning designer, curator, and associate professor of industrial design at the National University of Singapore. Hans will share the project R4 Repair with us, which showcases how broken objects can be given a new lease in life through creativity, which will change our preconceptions about repair. Welcome, Hans.
Thank you very much, Tuba. Hello, everyone. I'm Hans, and today I'd like to share about this project titled R for Repair. And this is a project I initiated in the year 2019 and commissioned by the Design Singapore Council. So after several delays related to the pandemic, R for Repair resulted in an exhibition that opened earlier this year in 2021 in January, and a book published by Temporary Press. So the thinking behind the project started when I was working on a design brief for a studio that I was teaching at the university, and reflecting on the notion of repair as an instinct that we have started to lose through the economy of mass consumption. I mean, if you discover a hole in your clothing right now, what's your first reaction? Would you mend it? Or like me, might you say, oh, that's a really good reason to go shopping later on? I mean, the thing is, not too long ago, restoration through repair was not unusual for many things that we own. And I remember when I was little, my parents or my grandma would mend my clothes. And as a teenager, when the video player was faulty, I would accompany my dad to a nearby electronic repair shop. And I think many of you can relate to that as well. But at the same time, I thought about how I got really excited when I was young about Chinese New Year, because it would be the only time in the year I would get a new set of nice clothing as a custom. And in the Asian, or especially in the Chinese context, replacing something old with something new is traditionally considered a sign of prosperity and good fortune. And naturally, repair takes a back seat. So through this project, I hope to bring back the same excitement and novelty to the notion of repair without having to buy that new set of nice clothes. So for this project, we launched the project by making an open call in Singapore for exhibition submissions through the council's social media channels. And we invited the public to volunteer objects in their possession that were either broken, they were worn out, or had totally stopped working. And each submission had to be accompanied with a story from the owner about why the object is still being kept despite it being in a state of disrepair. So out of the submissions, 10 objects were shortlisted, and they included things like a broken pair of spectacles, faded movie stubs, a fused radio clock. There were undersized bracelet, overused tote bag with holes. The smallest one we had was a cracked seashell souvenir, and the biggest one we had was an old broken sewing machine. So each object was matched with one of 10 designers based in Singapore that we invited to participate in the project as the repairman. And to tackle a variety of object types, the designers were selected from different design domains, such as product design, interaction design, visual communication, toy design, jewelry design, and even advertising. But more importantly was the diversity in the design ethos of the designers that we invited, where each designer interpreted the concept of repair differently and responded to the owner's narrative in their own way. So at the end of the exhibition, the repaired objects were returned to the owners as promised. And though we managed to convince all the object owners to grant the designers creative freedom at the onset, to interpret the repairs, I was really surprised at the sensibilities and the narratives captured in the repair outcomes. So with this video, I would like to share 2 instances of the outcomes. So may I have the video, please?
I'm Hans, and I'm the founder of Hans Sun Studio. R for Repair is a project where we wanted to investigate and contend with ideals associated with the concept of repair. We invited the public to volunteer broken objects of disrepair, objects that are spoiled. At the same time, the exhibition was really a response to the consumerist culture, the culture of throwing away things rather easily.
My name is Han Wai, and I am the creative director and co-founder of Lanzewerke & Wai Design Studio. We were given an archetypal Casio wristwatch whose strap had become brittle over the years. We have repaired the broken watch by encasing its essential timekeeping component in a supernormal cuboid form, handcrafted from noble walnut wood. Both parts of the cuboid enclosure are hewn from one single block of walnut. A continuous hole shows the time on the front, as well as allows for easy access for the owner's finger to push and detach the watch for future service and maintenance. The watch is kept in place just by surface friction in a hand-carved cavity. The front cover is also attached by friction with 4 brass pins that also serve as noon, 3, 6 and 9 o'clock markers. Our studio understands that the watch is a precious memento from the owner's growing up years and honors that memory by framing and reassigning it into a product archetype that will prominently exist and function in the owner's home for many days and seasons of life to come.
Hi, my name is Alvin, this is Clara, and we are from Atelier Hoko.
We received the cup with a broken handle, and the first instinct was to just glue it back, but then we felt, hey, this is actually a good pretext to reintroduce the gesture of drinking without handles, because actually in the Asian context, we do have a lot of cups without a handle.
So our approach was to grind down the sharp parts that were caused by the breakage. We put a layer of resin on it. We're trying to really introduce to the owner eventually is to continue to drink from the cup and to, in a way, drink with her hands. So the hand will start to feel the warmth of the beverage, you know.
We included a booklet that actually details like how you can possibly use it without the handle, and a little short write-up. I mean, to drink without the handle, what is it like? And I hope that she's able to experience it on her own. Yeah. And also when she's using it with her sister in their daily lives.
I really wish I had more time to share about all the different repair outcomes. But if you'd like to find out more about the project, you can search for R for repair on the web, and you'll find quite a number of articles featuring the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hans. This is a completely new way of thinking about repair. It's almost like a creative act on its own, isn't it? So we brought back 4 of our presenters. Hello, Chris, Jun, Rami, and Hans. Please allow me to start by thanking all 4 of you for sharing your thought-provoking projects and insights. We truly enjoy them. So we now have around 20 minutes for the discussion. But before we begin, I would like to do a mini recap to remind ourselves some of the key messages that came out from the 4 presentations, if you would allow me. So if we revisit Chris's presentation, he gave us a summary of a truly interdisciplinary approach to designing a face mask by bringing in circular design principles and system thinking, and how the teams negotiated business viability, technological feasibility, and user experience in the same process. Then June introduced another interdisciplinary project, which involved collaborations across various design schools and industry. And this collaboration led to an international platform advocating the 5 R: rethink, reduce, reuse, repair, and recycle as solutions for sustainable fashion innovation. Then Rami presented us an award-winning project and his journey with the repurposing of a magnificent piece of architecture with heritage value by reconnecting it with nature and its transformation to accommodate a variety of ecosystems. And finally, Hans showed us an alternative approach to repair, which goes beyond reinstating the object back to its original form, but that repair can actually become a creative act on its own and bring new values, new function and meaning and value, which can be even better than the original. So fantastic presentations. Thank you very much. So I have a number of questions, and while I was choosing and preparing the questions, actually, I thought let's ask all our presenters the same question, and collect from you your different perspectives, because you're representing slightly different design disciplines, and we have a scientist among us as well. And there's a bit of a recurring theme that came out from all the presentations, and I think there were a few elephant in the room moments which I'd like to point out as well. The first question I would like you to reflect on is the changing role of design and designer in the context of sustainable design and circular economy, as opposed to a linear approach to design. I'd like to start with Rami.
The changing world of design, so not being linear. I think that the first step in terms of designing with an approach that's towards sustainability is the notion of humbleness. I think that you're arriving at a point where there's such a variety of different expertise, of different components to take into consideration. So before being able to sit at the table and produce any form of schemes or intentions or designs, I think the notion of listening is fundamental. And I think that is a bit differing from the past, where maybe we had very strong imposed architectural visions, strong gestures that sort of overwhelmed maybe all other factors. Whereas now I think the architecture in terms of design has to be a gatherer. And by being this humble, listening and gathering, I think from then afterwards, what's put forward as gestures, be it biophilic, be it purist, be it simplistic, be it in repurposing, they then take into account the different factors. So I think that the architecture, at least the design role, has much more to do with listening in terms of being able to proceed in this non-linear fashion that encompasses all the different parties.
Thank you, Rami. I'd like to go to Chris. Chris, when you were presenting the workshops and all that product design of this face mask, one thing that came out very clearly was it wasn't just designing a product. The teams were designing also the different life cycles of the same product, and they were designing the transition of the product into other uses. Can you please reflect on that process a little bit?
Yes, you can see the crossover between all of the projects, whether it's with Jun or with Rami or with Han. If you look, Rami summed it up perfectly when he spoke about the buildings where they were designing them so that they could be repurposed 6 months after the show had happened. It's the same with a face mask. You just don't make a face mask. You need to say, okay, if we use elastic in the ear bands, it's not going to be recyclable. But if we use cotton ties and we put up with the discomfort of having to be able to tie it, we can recycle it over and over again. It's like having a shirt that is made from nylon with nylon buttons and nylon tags and nylon stitching, rather than using polyester stitching and acrylic buttons and all sorts of different things. We need to think about our design, not only how it will be used and used by the wearer, but what we do at the end and how we can get it to go around again and again and again.
Thank you, Chris. And I'll ask the same question to Hans.
Yeah, I'd like to make one quick point here, and just reflecting on what Rami mentioned, which I didn't share earlier in the presentation. For the exhibition at Art for Repair, which was held at the National Design Centre in Singapore, when I was designing the exhibition experience, what we essentially did was to give ourselves a brief, whereby at the end of the exhibition, we wanted zero waste. Yeah, we didn't achieve that much, but we made sure that every single exhibition component, when we designed it, was in the perspective that we would create an open call on the last day of the exhibition, so that we would invite people to come to take away the exhibition component, which were designed in such a way that people could still use as high tables and low tables, in the home context. So we have organizations coming in to collect these tables. We had people, coming in to collect these components for their private homes, and those components were fully booked in 7 hours, and we had a waiting list for them. So for us, not only did we not create any waste with the exhibition component, which usually creates the most waste in any exhibition design, but at the same time, we did not have to spend any money, trying to get these exhibition components away, because the people just came to the exhibition site and collected them based on the timing assigned to them.
Thank you, Hans. Well, I'll come back to June, but with another question. As you were presenting, June, and presenting the 5 Rs and how you introduced through this project as solutions for a new approach to sustainable fashion innovation, I was thinking in the past it was usually those people who can't afford to buy clothes, they would recycle those clothes. But today we are kind of introducing a completely new value systems. Even people who can afford maybe tons of different clothes are also going for a similar way of living. So how would you reflect on these, changing value systems, and maybe our role as a designer in bringing those changes through social transformation, industry transformation, and business transformation, and so on?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to say in traditional fashion, especially like a luxury fashion, so people just don't even pay much more care about how we could pay the responsible consumption. But generally, like a fashion design, which is highly focusing on the ethical fashion today. So how fashion can express, serve for the others and encourage the value which the fashion products could bring to the customer is now the key for the fashion designer as well. So fashion is not only something for those people who cannot afford those recycled or repurposed fashion, but now how we can find the value behind the fashion products, even those values which the fashion designer bring and tell the others. I would like to say, as a fashion educator, or those kind of suggestion for the fashion brands is we need to create a new value system to cultivating our customer and also adding the value to fashion brands. So more this kind of new idea could linking the consumer, starting to rising their conception consciousness about the sustainable fashion. So for example, our alumni who creating this kind of repair, like clothing workshop, and she just using lots of those knowledge, expand her blogger, encourage this sustainable idea, and make those customers understand the value behind the repair, and then bring more clothing to upcycling or just fixing the size. All those kind of idea could bring to the new fashion system. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. And here I would like to go back to Rami, because creating a new value system through a new product is one thing, but bringing and infusing a new value into an existing architecture is another thing. How would you reflect on that one, Rami?
I'll address how to bring it into a new building, but I just want to respond quickly to what was just being answered in terms of the new values, because it's very interesting. I think there's something that's uniting a lot of the speaking here, whether it's through the clothing, the objects that are repaired, the masks. I think what's being done is revealing the origin of an object, revealing where it comes from and how it's made. And that form of education is perhaps one of the greatest tools we have to change social values. If we understand how things are done and we reveal their process, then we might value it a little more. So anyways, that was just a small parenthesis because I was fascinated how there was that link of educating through revealing. Working in an existing building is a complex thing, and what was originally the Velodrome is a spectacular building in itself. And so the transformation that had already occurred in 1992, when we addressed it, we treated the building as a living entity. And so the idea was not to come once again and impose, but it was to study and understand. And this building, when we looked at it as almost like a biological living being because of all the systems and species, then we started isolating and identifying different parts that were underused and sort of had this intracellular transformation. So again, it's based on the principles of how can I reduce the energy when being able to proceed with the change, to not come, erase, and start over. How can I efficiently transform and benefit actually from the potential of the building? And so revealing the skylights, revealing the structure, bringing back a sort of dignity to the building was one way of celebrating what was an original architectural feat. And at the same time that we insert ourselves punctually and inhabit the space respectfully. And of course it was, above and all this, was the gesture of the white skin, this biophilic textile that sort of accompanies the visitor throughout all the space. It becomes a sort of skin that separates between visitors and the species, the ecosystems, and it becomes a very biophilic emblematic gesture where you almost don't see it end, and we're not sure through its parametric design, is it a living entity, is it a human-based entity? And I think that was a very, very powerful tool to bring about a sort of softness and wonder of nature within an existing building based on concrete and glass.
Very good. Thank you so much. And as you were all presenting, I was thinking all of these things are becoming more and more common, but still an exception. And we still need to push things, our educational systems and those value systems that we've been talking about. I'd like to ask, actually, each one of you very briefly share with us, where do you see the role that you play? For example, if we start with Chris, as a scientist, you know, how and an educator, how do you see yourself, the role that you would play in this transition?
So as a material research scientist, for me, it's creating the processes that enable the circularity to occur. So for designers to be able to select a mono material, we've still got to be able to take that mono material and take it around the circle and bring it back again into a product as good or better than what we started with. And at the moment, when we look at a lot of recycling, we start off here and we work our way down until we throw it away. So it's how we go around and around the circle and stay at the higher quality is where I can see myself as a scientist being enabling of processes that will help that to happen. And yeah, that's my area. Thank you.
And Hans?
Yeah, I think for me, when I interact with the students and even as designers, I think one thing that we often want to do is to design a new product, right? And more often than not, we design it and then we throw it into the system and see how it reacts. And more often than not, we take into consideration the material and the performance and also the needs of the people who are using it. But at the same time, I think it's really important to consider the process. But for me, I think at the same time, we also need to consider the significance or the story or the narrative of the things that we are designing. And so for example, in the Art for Repair exhibition, being an educator, I was really worried, when I saw the designers who we invited as kind of like students. I'm sorry to say that, but because I was really worried that these designers were really prominent in their own fields and they could do almost anything to the objects that they were redesigning and repairing, right? So what we did at our end to design the design process to some extent was to have a compulsory session where the designers had to speak to the owner of the objects, and they had a conversation over Zoom, so that the owners could describe the history, and the stories behind each of the object, and the designers made a personal connection to these owners and the things that they possessed. And at the same time, also, as part of the exhibition research, we went into each of these owners' homes and we did a photo documentary of where they lived, where do they keep these objects that they possessed, and we sent these documentation to the designers as well. So they had a lot more narrative and story to work with other than just the object in itself. So I think that really helped the designers connect, to the stories, and the meanings of and the significance of the objects they were working on.
Thank you. I'll quickly ask Jun and later Rami to reflect on the same question as well. And afterwards, we're going to start wrapping up, I'm afraid. June, could you also please share with us where do you see your role in the transition?
So I would like to say the general role for my positioning is the educator, but in this industry transformation, I would like to say we are also the co-creator in this process, because China's textile and clothing industry is the biggest exporter and producer in the world. And that's why for our colleges, linking our research and education closely with the industry and how to implement our research to the industry. And then, you know, this transformation means there's quite still lots of risk in this kind of industry transformation. So how to find the evidence and the research process to persuade and provide their strong belief there should be the right way to go is our task. And that's why I call this process is a co-creator process. So using our research and education, co-create the value and co-create the business mode for future. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jun. And Rami, last words from you?
The role that we could play, I think actually I would nuance what was being said, and I would say that to keep learning. I think what was been happening over the years, every project and different groups, and even sitting here today, you just keep learning. And whether that learning has to do with the balance between species, inclusivity with species, carbon neutral buildings, I think the role that on our end is firstly to keep learning. And then afterwards, well, try and address every project as an opportunity to perhaps inspire change and be touching and have a certain patience. There are all sorts of forms of eco-anxiety. There's nervousness, and not just as a professional, as a citizen, as a parent, as a friend. All this occupies our minds all the time, but also accept that we can only go one step at a time and attempt, I think, as was being said, that these narratives be meaningful and they provide an example. They set the sort of stage to allow others to go even beyond what we propose in this such a critical time.
It is indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Rami. So unfortunately, we came to the end of our session. This has been a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your thoughts with us. And I would like to thank also to our online audience who have been joining us from all over the world. Whichever time zone you are, I hope you enjoyed our sessions too. Thank you so much. And back to you, Tonya.
Thank you so much, Tuba, and a huge thank you to tonight's wonderful presenters, to June, Hans, Rami and Chris. It's inspiring to hear about these projects, challenging the status quo and finding innovative ways to design and redesign sustainable solutions. Tonight's presentations will be available on our website, so you can find out more about the presenters at geelongcityofdesign.com.au. Now that does bring us to the conclusion of tonight's formal public presentations, but for those of you joining us as representatives of the Cities of Design Subnetwork, please now use the link that's been previously emailed to you for entering into your next meeting session. So for others who've kindly joined us, thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed the presentations and discussions. Please join us again tomorrow night, our final night, where the theme is Regenerate Urban Design. You can watch tomorrow's live stream from 9 p.m. Australian Daylight Savings Time at geelongcityofdesign.com.au. And we'll close the session this evening with a video from the Geelong Tech School. Thank you.
Welcome to the Geelong Tech School. Geelong Tech School blends the worlds of work and study, preparing secondary students for a future full of possibility. It's an amazing technology hub that facilitates programs which focus on science, technology, engineering and mathematics, the vital STEM and problem-solving skills needed for success in the 21st century. We complement the Victorian curriculum used in secondary schools across Geelong by providing access to cutting-edge technologies and state-of-the-art facilities. Our innovative learning programs are developed in partnership with local industry, community and schools. We bring together the worlds of work and study with hands-on learning experiences. We do this by implementing real-world skills like critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork, communication, creativity and technology. We design programs that engage young people, inspiring them to make a difference. Supporting teachers is also a key focus. We aim to help teachers integrate tech school programs underpinned by STEM applied learning and design thinking into their classrooms. By demonstrating what can be done in the classroom with emerging technologies, we build teachers' capacity to do the same in their own schools. We offer a range of programs from single-day inspirations, design challenges to 5-day immersive programs. All are free to partner schools and include transport to and from the school. Each program is underpinned by design thinking and requires students to collaboratively address a brief using emerging technologies. The Design to Thrive program model is an immersive 5-day program that includes a visit to a local industry to gain understanding and to identify challenges. With the assistance of tech school facilities and expertise, students work collaboratively to ideate, design, prototype, test and finally present their ideas back to the industry. Core programs are based on scenarios inspired by real industry briefs. Over 4 weeks, teachers are provided extensive resources and support documentation to engage students at school. Students then come to Geelong Tech School to access technologies, equipment and expertise. Tech Tasters are full-day workshops designed to inspire through exposure to modern technologies and practical hands-on experience to design and prototype. The aim is to give participants a taste of new technology and the range of possibilities and applications they offer. The Geelong Tech School's mission is to equip students with incredible skills and knowledge that will allow them to pursue further training and education pathways and prepare for an exciting future.